Picture a night sky so clear it feels like you could reach out and touch the stars. Suddenly, a streak of light blazes across the darkness, a comet, its tail glowing like a celestial brushstroke. For a moment, the world holds its breath. This is no ordinary sight. To ancient civilizations, such an event wasn't just beautiful. It was a message, a warning, a prophecy written in the stars. From the Babylonians who charted its path to the Mayans who saw it as a harbinger of change, that single comet carried meanings far beyond its fiery glow. And it wasn't alone. Across millennia, eclipses darkened the sun, meteors lit up the heavens, and planets aligned in ways that sent shivers down the spines of kings and commoners alike. The sky wasn't just a canvas of light, it was a mirror reflecting humanity's deepest fears, hopes, and unanswered questions. What if I told you these cosmic events were more than just random acts of nature? What if they were part of a hidden dialogue between the heavens and earth, a language of omens and predictions woven into the fabric of history? Cultures around the world, from the dusty scrolls of Chinese astronomers to the stone circles of Celtic druids, believed the skies spoke to them. A sudden eclipse might foretell the fall of an empire. A rare alignment of planets could signal the birth of a messiah. Even today, in our age of satellites and space probes, there's something undeniably eerie about the way celestial phenomena seem to coincide with pivotal moments in human history. It's as if the universe itself is whispering secrets, if only we know how to listen. That's where our journey begins. In this video, we'll unravel 25 of the most mysterious tales of celestial prophecies ever recorded, stories that blur the line between coincidence and destiny. You'll hear about comets that predicted royal tragedies, stars that guided entire civilizations, and eclipses that halted wars in their tracks. Some of these stories will chill you. Others will make you question everything you thought you knew about the cosmos. But one thing's certain, by the time we're done, you'll never look at the night sky the same way again. So let's dive in, because the stars have been waiting to tell their side of the story. Long before telescopes or modern star charts, the Babylonians gazed upward with nothing but their eyes and an unshakable belief that the gods spoke through the planets. And no celestial body captured their attention quite like Venus, the dazzling Queen of Heaven. In the clay archives of ancient Mesopotamia, one artifact stands out: the Venus Tablet of Amasajuka, a fragile masterpiece from the reign of King Amasajuka around 1600 BCE. This wasn't just a record, it was a cosmic playbook. Babylonian astrologers meticulously tracked Venus's dance across the sky, its appearances, disappearances, and even the slightest shifts in brightness, and linked them to events on Earth with uncanny precision. A delayed rise of Venus might signal famine, an unusually bright glow, the fall of a rival king. What's truly astonishing is how these observations weren't just random guesses. The tablet contains detailed cycles of Venus's movements over 21 years, predictions so accurate that modern astronomers have used them to recalibrate timelines of ancient Mesopotamia. But for the Babylonians, this wasn't just science, it was survival. Kings relied on these celestial warnings to declare wars, negotiate treaties, or even postpone coronations. Imagine a ruler delaying his own crowning because Venus flickered ominously in the pre-dawn sky. That's the power these astrologers held. Court decisions, agricultural plans, even the fate of empires hinged on interpretations of a single planet's behavior. Yet the Venus Tablet reveals something deeper, a civilization that saw the universe as a living, breathing entity. To them, the stars weren't distant lights but divine messengers. When Venus vanished behind the sun, it wasn't an orbital quirk, it was the goddess Ishtar descending into the underworld, her absence a time of heightened danger. When she reappeared, it signaled renewal. This blend of myth and meticulous observation created a system so influential that echoes of it appear in Greek, Roman, and even medieval European astrology. The Babylonians didn't just watch the sky, they listened to it, convinced that every flicker of light held a story waiting to unfold below, and sometimes the most chilling part. They were right. Historical records show eerie correlations between Venus's recorded anomalies and actual upheavals, dynasties collapsing, cities falling, droughts gripping the land. Whether by divine intervention or celestial coincidence, the Venus Tablet remains one of history's most haunting examples of how deeply humanity has always tied its destiny to the stars. The Star of Bethlehem has mystified scholars and stargazers alike for centuries, a celestial anomaly so striking it guided wise men across deserts to a humble birthplace. But what exactly shone in that ancient sky? Modern astronomers have pieced together several compelling theories, each with its own fascinating evidence. One possibility points to a rare planetary conjunction, a moment when Jupiter and Saturn appeared to merge in the constellation Pisces around 7 BCE. To Babylonian astrologers, Jupiter symbolized kingship, Saturn represented justice, and Pisces was tied to the lands of Judea. The mathematical precision of their alignment would have been interpreted as a cosmic announcement: a righteous king was coming. Yet other researchers argue for something even more spectacular: a supernova, a dying star exploding with enough brilliance to outshine entire galaxies. Ancient Chinese astronomers from the Han Dynasty recorded an unusual guest star glowing near the constellation Aquila in 5 BCE, visible for over 70 days before fading. Korean stargazers documented the same event in their own celestial logs. Could this have been the fiery beacon mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew? The timing aligns eerily with estimates of Jesus' birth, and unlike planets, a supernova would have appeared suddenly, blazing with unmistakable significance against the night canvas. Then there's the comet theory. Halley's comet streaked across the sky in 12 BCE, too early for the nativity timeline, but Chinese records mention another, unnamed comet around 5 BCE, described as long-tailed and lingering for weeks. Comets were universally feared as omens of upheaval, yet this one's prolonged visibility might have been seen as a divine exception, a celestial finger pointing toward Bethlehem. Perhaps the most haunting detail lies in the Magi themselves. These weren't just starry-eyed mystics, they were likely Zoroastrian priests from Persia, masters of an astronomical tradition even older than Babylon's. Their journey suggests they recognized something unparalleled in the heavens, an event so extraordinary it compelled them to travel hundreds of miles with gifts fit for royalty. Whether it was planets aligning, a star dying in glory, or a comet's icy tail painting the sky, one thing is certain: 2,000 years later, we're still staring upward, wondering what made that night shine brighter than all others. While the Babylonians tracked Venus with clay tablets halfway across the world, the Maya were perfecting their own celestial prophecies, not just on stone but in pages. The Dresden Codex, one of only 4 surviving Maya books, reveals an obsession with Venus so precise it borders on eerie. Picture this: a bark paper manuscript painted with vivid blue and red glyphs, surviving centuries in European libraries after Spanish conquistadors burned nearly all other Maya texts. Within its fragile pages lies a sophisticated Venus table spanning over 500 years, predicting the planet's movements with an error margin of just 2 hours. For a civilization without telescopes, that's like calculating the exact moment a candle flickers from miles away. But here's where it gets chilling. The Maya didn't just track Venus for celestial curiosity, they tied its cycles to blood and soil. When Venus appeared as the morning star, they saw it as a signal to plant crops. When it shifted to the evening star, warriors prepared for battle. The Codex even marks specific danger periods, days when Venus's position coincided with historical defeats, warning future generations to avoid conflict during those vulnerable windows. Imagine entire armies standing down because a shimmering dot in the sky told them to. This wasn't superstition, it was a cosmic clockwork where celestial rhythms dictated survival. Then there's the prophecy that gripped the modern world, the so-called 2012 end date. Hidden in the Codex's calculations was the end of a 5,000-year cycle, a reset of the Maya long count calendar. Pop culture twisted this into apocalyptic hype, but the truth is far more profound. For the Maya, this wasn't doom, it was transformation. Like the cyclical return of Venus, they saw time as a spiral where endings birthed renewal. Recent studies suggest the date may have aligned with rare galactic alignments, events the Maya possibly interpreted as portals for spiritual rebirth. What lingers isn't just their accuracy, but their worldview. Where we see orbits, they saw omens. Where we calculate trajectories, they read destiny. The Dresden Codex is a testament to a civilization that didn't just observe the heavens, they conversed with them, turning celestial math into a language of life, death, and the delicate balance between both. The year 1066 wasn't just a turning point in history, it was a moment written in fire across the sky. As Halley's comet blazed over England in April, its eerie glow stretched like a celestial spear, visible for weeks. To the people below, it wasn't a scientific curiosity, it was an omen, a cosmic verdict on the bloody struggle for the English throne. And no one understood the power of that message better than William, Duke of Normandy. When word reached him that his rival, King Harold, had been crowned, the comet's timing couldn't have been more perfect. To William, this wasn't just a sign, it was a weapon. The Bayeux Tapestry, that 70-meter-long embroidered chronicle of the Norman conquest, captures the moment with chilling clarity. In one panel, terrified commoners point upward at the comet, their faces twisted in dread, while a messenger delivers the news to Harold himself. The stitching is simple, but the symbolism is razor-sharp. The comet isn't just passing overhead, it's passing judgment. Harold's throne sits beneath it like a target, as if the heavens themselves are marking him for downfall. Meanwhile, William's propagandists went to work, spreading word that the comet was a divine endorsement of his claim. Imagine the psychological warfare, a rival king's coronation literally overshadowed by a flaming portent of doom. What's fascinating is how calculated this all was. Halley's comet appears roughly every 76 years, and medieval Europe was no stranger to its visits. But William's camp didn't just let the spectacle speak for itself, they weaponized it. Monkish chronicles from Normandy describe the comet as a star with fiery hair, linking it to ancient prophecies of regime change. By framing Harold as a usurper and the comet as God's displeasure, William turned a natural phenomenon into the ultimate rallying cry. When his forces landed at Hastings that October, they didn't just carry swords, they carried celestial certainty. The tapestry's final panels drive the point home. Harold falls with an arrow in his eye, his death framed as cosmic inevitability. Yet modern science adds a haunting footnote. Halley's comet's 1066 appearance was unusually bright, its tail stretching nearly halfway across the sky, a detail confirmed by Chinese and Arab astronomers. For once, the propaganda might have mirrored reality. Whether by divine will or sheer luck, William didn't just ride the comet's symbolism to victory, he etched it into history, stitching his triumph into fabric and folklore alike. Centuries later, the message still lingers. Sometimes the stars don't just watch history unfold, they shape it. In the heart of China's Forbidden City, where emperors ruled with the mandate of heaven, the night sky wasn't just a spectacle, it was a battlefield. The Ming dynasty's astrologers, cloistered in secrecy, held a power more dangerous than any sword, the ability to read the heavens. These weren't mere stargazers, they were the emperor's human early warning system, tasked with spotting celestial clues that could predict rebellions, droughts, or even the ruler's own downfall. One misstep, though, and their heads would roll literally. Take the case of the Hongwu Emperor's court in 1384. when astrologers reported a guest star, likely a supernova, brightening near the constellation Scorpius. Their calculations suggested impending turmoil. The emperor, paranoid after recent uprisings, ordered immediate purges of suspected traitors. But when the predicted unrest failed to materialize, the astrologers faced a grim choice: admit their error and face execution, or falsify records to pretend they'd foreseen a different outcome. Many chose the latter, weaving lies into star charts that would mislead scholars for centuries. This was no isolated incident. Emperors like Yongle, who moved the capital to Beijing, relied on astrologers to time his campaigns and construction projects, but woe betide the scholar who dared predict an inauspicious date. The irony: their most accurate predictions were often their undoing. In 1521, court astronomers warned the Zhengde emperor that a planetary alignment foretold a major flood. When the Yangtze River burst its banks months later, the emperor didn't reward them, he silenced them, fearing their power to foresee disasters might incite panic or, worse, challenge his divine right to rule. Survivors learned to cloak their prophecies in riddles, encoding dire warnings in poetry or burying them in obscure almanacs. Some even smeared ink over critical passages in official records, leaving later historians to piece together the truth like celestial detectives. Yet their legacy lingers in places like the ancient observatory of Beijing, where bronze instruments still bear the scars of their wielders' fear. The very tools used to track comets and eclipses were also instruments of survival, their data tweaked to appease emperors while preserving fragments of truth. Modern astronomers have spent decades untangling fact from fiction, discovering that behind the manipulated records lay astonishingly precise observations: solar eclipses dated to the hour, supernova mapped to the very week they blazed into existence. The Ming astrologers may have been forced to lie, but the stars they watched never did. Their story is a haunting reminder that in empires where the sky dictated fate, sometimes the most dangerous knowledge wasn't in the heavens but in the hands of those who dared to interpret them. Among all the celestial prophets, few names loom as large or as debated as Mitchell de Nostradamus. The 16th century apothecary turned seer penned hundreds of quatrains, their cryptic verses weaving astrology, biblical prophecy, and sheer ambiguity into a tapestry that still sparks obsession today. But two predictions stand out, not just for their fame, but for how deeply they're tied to the heavens. The first, his notorious mention of the year 1999, 7th month, when a king of terror would descend from the sky. For centuries, interpreters linked this to cataclysmic events, from nuclear war to asteroid impacts. But peel back the layers, and you'll find Nostradamus wasn't gazing into a crystal ball, he was reading the stars. July 1999 wasn't a random date. It marked a total solar eclipse, one of the most dramatic celestial events visible across Europe and Asia. In medieval astrology, eclipses were omens of upheaval, often tied to the fall of kings. Nostradamus, trained in classical astronomy, would have known this eclipse's path cut directly over historic battlefields like Kosovo, where empires had clashed for centuries. His king of terror likely wasn't a literal monarch but a metaphor for the chaos eclipses traditionally symbolized. The irony: while doomsayers awaited fireworks in 1999, the real terror came 2 years later, 9/11, a tragedy some still strain to connect to his words through creative reinterpretation. Then there's the enigma of Hister. Many modern theorists insist this was Nostradamus foreseeing Hitler, a chilling prophecy of the Nazi regime, but the truth is far less cinematic. In Nostradamus's time, Hister was the Latin name for the Danube River, a geographic reference in his elaborate wordplay. His original text places Hister in contexts involving boats and floods, not genocidal dictators. The Hitler link emerged centuries later, a classic case of hindsight bias twisting vague phrasing to fit known events. What's often overlooked is Nostradamus's methodology. His predictions weren't plucked from thin air. They were calculated using medieval astrological techniques, blending planetary positions with historical cycles. He studied conjunctions of Jupiter and Saturn, events ancient astrologers believed heralded societal shifts. His famous quatrain about a young lion overcoming an older one likely referenced a specific alignment of Mars and Jupiter in Leo, a sign associated with royalty. To Nostradamus, the sky was a clock, its hands pointing to recurring patterns of rise and fall. Yet the real magic and danger of his work lies in its vagueness. By avoiding concrete details, his prophecies became a mirror, reflecting whatever fears or events later generations projected onto them. A lesson lingers here. When we stare too hard at the stars for answers, sometimes we only see what we're afraid to find. In the autumn of 1811, a ghostly visitor appeared in the skies over Europe, a comet so brilliant it cast shadows at midnight. For 17 months, its sweeping tail dominated the heavens, a sight so unnerving that farmers recorded grapes ripening unusually fast, as if the very fabric of nature had been altered. But no one watched this celestial spectacle with more unease than Napoleon Bonaparte, whose armies were massing for what would become the most disastrous campaign of his career, the invasion of Russia. To the superstitious soldiers of the Grand Armée, the comet wasn't just an astronomical event. It was a harbinger written in fire. Contemporary diaries recount how the comet's eerie glow coincided with freak weather patterns that summer, unseasonable heat waves followed by violent storms, conditions many blamed on the comet's poisonous vapors. French troops marching eastward faced harvests ruined by the bizarre climate, leaving villages stripped of food even before the infamous winter set in. Russian peasants, interpreting the comet as divine wrath against invaders, burned their own crops rather than let Napoleon's men eat. The psychological toll was just as devastating. Letters sent home by soldiers describe the comet as a celestial judge, its relentless presence fueling rumors that God himself opposed the campaign. By the time Moscow burned and retreat began, men whispered that the comet had foretold it all, its lingering tail a metaphor for the long, frozen road back to France. Napoleon's own court astronomers tried dismissing these fears, but even science seemed to conspire against him. The comet's path arching westward as his shattered army fled Russia was interpreted as a cosmic mockery, as if the heavens were herding the survivors toward their doom. Later historians would pinpoint the comet's timing with chilling precision. Its closest approach to Earth occurred just as Napoleon's forces reached the brink of collapse at the Berezina River, where thousands drowned in the icy currents beneath the comet's glow. What makes the Great Comet of 1811 so haunting isn't just its timing, but the way it wove itself into the fabric of human decisions. Napoleon, a man who prided himself on reason, found his troops paralyzed by celestial dread. Russian commanders, seeing their enemies' morale fracture, leaned into the propaganda, framing their resistance as a holy war blessed by the comet's light. Even the landscape seemed to conspire. The same unseasonable warmth that ruined crops also left the ground too soft for French artillery, while later snows buried the starving retreating army. Whether by coincidence or the strange interplay of cosmic events and human psychology, the comet didn't just share the sky with Napoleon's downfall, it became an actor in the tragedy, a silent force shaping history as surely as any general or emperor. The night of November 12, 1833, shattered any illusion that the sky was a peaceful canopy. Across North America, tens of thousands of meteors streaked through the darkness, not in gentle arcs but in a frenzied downpour as if the stars themselves were falling. Observers described it as snowing fire, with estimates suggesting over 100,000 meteors per hour at the storm's peak. In the rural South, enslaved people whispered that the chains of heaven had broken. In New England, families huddled in churches, convinced the final trumpet had sounded. Even hardened skeptics like Abraham Lincoln, then a young man in Illinois, were said to have watched in silent awe. This wasn't just a celestial event, it was a spiritual earthquake. Preachers seized on the spectacle with apocalyptic fervor. Charles Finney, the fiery evangelist leading the Second Great Awakening, declared the Leonids proof of God's impatience with a sinful nation. Camp meetings swelled with converts who'd witnessed the storm, their tents lit by the same eerie glow that had illuminated the meteors. Pamphlets circulated with titles like The Fiery Harbinger, linking the event to Revelation's prophecy of stars falling like figs from a shaken tree. For communities already steeped in millennialism, the storm wasn't just a sign, it was a countdown clock. Yet while white settlers saw doom, native tribes interpreted the sky's fury differently. Cherokee elders recalled ancient stories of the fire panthers, celestial beings whose leaps created shooting stars. The Pawnee, whose morning star rituals were central to their cosmology, saw the storm as a cosmic rebalancing, a reminder that the heavens demanded respect, not fear. These contrasting views reveal a cultural chasm. Where Christians perceived punishment, indigenous traditions often read dialogue. Ironically, the same event that fueled religious panic also birthed modern meteor science. Yale astronomer Denison Olmsted, after interviewing witnesses from Maine to Georgia, made a groundbreaking deduction. The meteors radiated from a single point in Leo, proving they originated beyond Earth's atmosphere. His findings dismantled the medieval notion that meteors were atmospheric exhalations, replacing superstition with celestial mechanics. The Leonids became a Rosetta Stone for understanding cometary debris trails, proof that the universe was far more dynamic than anyone had dared to imagine. What lingers isn't just the science or the sermons, but the storm's uncanny timing. The 1830s were a decade of upheaval, slavery debates boiling over, railroads rewriting geography, and revivalism redefining faith. Against this backdrop, the Leonids didn't just light up the sky, they held up a mirror, revealing a society torn between terror and wonder, between seeing the cosmos as a court of judgment or a classroom of discovery. The stars fell, but how people responded depended entirely on the stories they carried in their hearts. Deep in the Siberian wilderness, a morning unlike any other dawned on June 30, 1908. The Evenki tribespeople, who had lived for generations beneath the vast taiga canopy, were the first to sense something was terribly wrong. Their shamans spoke of restless sky spirits, of dreams filled with fire and splintered trees. Then, just after 7 in the morning, the heavens split open. A blast of unimaginable force, later estimated to be 1,000 times more powerful than the Hiroshima bomb, flattened 80 million trees across 800 square miles. Reindeer herds vaporized in an instant. Nomadic tents were hurled through the air like dry leaves. The shockwave circled the globe twice, and for nights afterward, the sky glowed so brightly across Europe that newspapers could be read at midnight without lamps. This was the Tunguska event, and to the Evenki, it wasn't just an explosion, it was the fulfillment of an ancient prophecy. What makes their warnings so chilling isn't just their accuracy, but the layers of meaning woven into them. The Evenki didn't merely predict disaster, they interpreted celestial disturbances as messages from the spirit world. Their shamans had long spoken of Ogdi, a fiery deity who rode comets like chariots, punishing those who violated sacred hunting grounds. In the weeks before the blast, elders reported unusual animal behavior, bears abandoning their dens, migratory birds altering flight paths, signs they believed heralded Ogdi's wrath. Soviet scientists arriving years later dismissed these accounts as superstition, but modern researchers have uncovered eerie correlations. Seismic records from early 1908 show unusual tremors in the region days before the event, suggesting the Evenki might have sensed subterranean stress shifts long before instruments could. For decades, the Soviet government buried the truth beneath layers of secrecy. Initial expeditions weren't launched until 1927, and even then, state censors scrubbed reports of the Evenki's prophecies, fearing they'd stoke unrest among indigenous populations. Official bulletins blamed the explosion on a meteorite, yet no crater or fragments were ever found, a glaring inconsistency that fueled wild speculation. Conspiracy theorists seized on the void, spinning tales of secret Nikola Tesla experiments gone wrong. Some claimed the inventor had been testing his death ray transmitter from Long Island, accidentally unleashing a burst of energy that arced across the polar skies. Others pointed to declassified Soviet documents hinting at early plasma weapon tests. The wildest theories even suggested an alien spacecraft had exploded mid-air, citing reports of strange metallic debris found near the epicenter. Yet the most haunting thread connects back to the Evenki themselves. Modern anthropologists studying their oral traditions have noted parallels between Ogdi's mythology and descriptions of ball lightning, a phenomenon still not fully understood by science. Their legends describe glowing orbs that fell like angry stars before the Great Blast, matching contemporary accounts of St. Elmo's fire flickering across the Taiga in the disaster's wake. Whether through ancestral intuition or acute environmental awareness, the Evenki sky spirits may have been real forces masquerading as myth. The Tunguska event endures not just as a scientific enigma, but as a collision point, where prophecy, secrecy, and cosmic violence met in the most remote courtroom on Earth, the endless Siberian sky. Between the late 1960s and early 70s, a shadow stalked California, a killer who signed his taunting letters with a circle and cross, the stark symbol of the Zodiac. But the Zodiac killer didn't just leave bodies in his wake, he left celestial breadcrumbs. His ciphers, drenched in astrological references and timed to cosmic events, suggested a mind obsessed with the sky's hidden language. One of his most chilling notes arrived just days after the Apollo 11 moon landing in July 1969, declaring the astronaut steps on lunar soil a sacrifice. To him, this wasn't scientific triumph, it was ritual. The zodiac symbol he adopted wasn't random. In his letters, he wove constellations into threats, referencing the star Vega and aligning his murder dates with celestial phenomena. The night of his first confirmed attack, July 4, 1969, coincided with a new moon, a time astrologers associate with new beginnings, or in his twisted logic, new cycles of violence. Later, he mailed a cipher to the San Francisco Chronicle featuring a grid of symbols that amateur sleuths quickly realized mirrored the positions of stars in the Hercules constellation on the night of one of his killings. Was this arrogance a serial killer signing his crimes with the cosmos, or something darker? A belief that the stars themselves were accomplices. Then there's the unsolved 340 cipher, a string of characters he claimed contained his identity. Cryptographers have spent decades dissecting it, but one theory stands out. The numbers might correspond to astrological declinations, the angular distance of stars from the celestial equator. If true, it would mean the zodiac didn't just hide his name in code, he buried it in the sky's geometry. Even his choice of victims followed eerie patterns. Two of his attacks occurred near Lake Berryessa and Lake Herman Road, locations that, when plotted on a map, align almost perfectly with the rising points of Sirius and Betelgeuse during those seasons, stars traditionally linked to chaos and war in ancient astrology. Perhaps most unsettling is his fixation on the moon landing. In one letter, he sketched a crude diagram of the lunar module alongside the words "slaves in paradise," suggesting he saw Armstrong and Aldrin not as explorers but as offerings to some celestial entity. Conspiracy theorists later linked this to esoteric myths about the moon being a repository of ancient evil, but the truth might be simpler. The Zodiac viewed human progress as blasphemy against the cosmic order. His final known letter, postmarked in 1974, included a doodle of a solar eclipse, a silent prophecy perhaps of his own vanishing into darkness. What lingers isn't just the unsolved crimes, but the killer's unsettling fusion of astronomy and pathology. The same stars that guided navigators and inspired poets became, in his hands, a twisted map of violence. And somewhere in those unsolved ciphers, the zodiac's voice still whispers, encrypted not just in symbols, but in the cold, indifferent glitter of the night sky. The alignment was too perfect to ignore. At least that's what millions believed in the lead up to March 10, 1982. On that day, Jupiter, Saturn, Mars, and Venus would form a near straight line on the same side of the Sun, a celestial event so rare it had last occurred in 948. But this wasn't just an astronomical curiosity. It was the foundation of a doomsday prophecy dubbed the Jupiter effect. Two astrophysicists, John Gribbin and Stephen Plageman, had fueled the frenzy with their 1974 book claiming the planet's combined gravitational pull would trigger catastrophic earthquakes, possibly even toppling California into the sea. The idea spread like wildfire, seeping into tabloids, sermons, and even survivalist bunkers. Scientists quickly dismissed the theory as pseudoscience. The planet's gravitational influence on Earth, they pointed out, was minuscule, far weaker than the Moon's tides, which even at their strongest couldn't crack the planet's crust. Astronomer Carl Sagan publicly derided the prediction, comparing the alignment's pull to a mosquito landing on a battleship. Seismologists joined the chorus, noting that quakes originate miles underground, far beyond the reach of celestial tugs. Yet skepticism did little to dampen public fear. Survival gear sales spiked, families stockpiled canned goods. In Los Angeles, some residents reportedly slept in their cars, ready to flee the predicted big one. Why did the myth persist? Part of its appeal lay in timing. The late 70s and early 80s were steeped in existential dread, Cold War tensions, economic instability, and a growing distrust of institutions made apocalyptic thinking fertile ground. The Jupiter effect offered a narrative where chaos wasn't random but scripted, written in the stars themselves. It also tapped into an ancient human instinct, the desire to see patterns even where none existed. People had long linked planetary movements to earthly events, from Babylonian omens to Nostradamus's quatrains. The Jupiter effect was simply this impulse repackaged for the space age. When the fateful day arrived, the planets aligned and nothing happened. No earthquakes, no tsunamis, just an ordinary Wednesday. Gribbin himself later admitted the hypothesis was flawed, calling it a youthful indiscretion. Yet the story didn't end there. In a twist worthy of cosmic irony, a magnitude 5.3 quake did rattle California 11 days later, far too weak to match the prophecy but enough to reignite whispers among believers. Some insisted the scientists had miscalculated the timing. Others claimed the alignment's effects were delayed, like a celestial time bomb. The real legacy of the Jupiter effect isn't in its failed predictions, but in what it reveals about the tension between science and superstition. Even in an era of moon landings and Voyager probes, the old allure of celestial prophecy endured. It's a reminder that when faced with the vast, impersonal cosmos, humanity will always wrestle with two competing impulses: to study the stars or to let them tell our stories for us. In March 1997, the Hale-Bopp comet blazed across the night sky, its twin tails stretching like celestial brushstrokes. To most, it was a breathtaking astronomical event. But for 39 members of the Heaven's Gate cult, it was the doorway to another world, one they believed they could reach only by leaving their physical bodies behind. Their final act, a meticulously planned mass suicide, remains one of the most chilling intersections of cosmic spectacle and human tragedy. The group's leader, Marshall Applewhite, had spent decades weaving together sci-fi imagery, biblical prophecy, and New Age beliefs into a twisted narrative. He convinced his followers they were extraterrestrial souls trapped in human forms, awaiting a spaceship that would transport them to a higher plane. When Hale-Bopp appeared, Applewhite seized on NASA publicly released images, manipulating them to prove a mysterious object trailed the comet, a vessel he called their heavenly pickup. In eerie homemade videos, his followers spoke calmly of their impending departure, dressed in identical black shirts and Nike sneakers, their voices eerily serene as they described shedding their containers to board the craft. What makes their story so unsettling isn't just the tragedy itself, but how Applewhite weaponized genuine celestial wonder. He exploited the comet's visibility, a once-in-4,000-year event, to lend credibility to his claims. Amateur astronomers had indeed spotted an anomalous smudge near Hale-Bopp, later identified as a distant star, but Applewhite's distorted version spread through the group like gospel. Even more haunting were the farewell tapes where members thanked him for guiding them home, their faces lit with something between devotion and dissociation. One woman smiled as she recited, "We're happily ready to leave this world." The aftermath revealed a meticulously orchestrated plan. The cult's compound was spotless, each suicide note arranged beside purple shrouds, their pockets stuffed with $5 bills and quarters pocket change for the journey. Investigators found bunk beds where they'd lain down in shifts, ingesting a lethal cocktail of phenobarbital and vodka before covering their faces with triangular cloths, as if already preparing for their new alien existence. Scientists later confirmed Hale-Bopp had no hidden companion, just as psychiatrists dissected Applewhite's hold over his followers. Yet the event lingers as a dark parable about the human hunger for transcendence and how easily the vast, indifferent cosmos can be twisted into a mirror for our deepest longings. The comet didn't judge, it simply shone on, indifferent to the lives it had unwittingly helped extinguish. As the last days of 1999 slipped away, a shadow raced across the Earth, not the digital catastrophe the world had braced for, but something far older. On August 11th, a total solar eclipse darkened the skies from Cornwall to Calcutta, its path crossing ancient Maya heartlands in Mexico and Guatemala. For New Age seekers, this wasn't just celestial mechanics, it was validation. Articles flooded alternative magazines declaring the eclipse the true fulfillment of the Maya calendar's so-called end date, despite being 7 years early. Workshops sprang up overnight at sacred sites like Chichen Itza, where self-proclaimed visionaries sold ceremonies to align with galactic energy. Tourists draped in crystals crowded temple steps, convinced the eclipse would trigger spiritual ascension. But in the highland villages where Maya dialects still echo, elders watched the spectacle with weary amusement. Anthropologists recorded their reaction stories of bemused chuckles at foreigners who'd twisted their ancestors' math. The Maya calendar, they explained, didn't predict doom. It marked cycles like pages in an almanac. One KH grandmother told researchers, "These people act like the sun forgot how to rise." Her words cut to the heart of the divide. Where outsiders saw apocalypse, Maya communities saw continuity. The irony runs deeper. While New Agers fixated on imaginary prophecies, actual Maya spiritual leaders were reviving authentic traditions suppressed for centuries. In Guatemala, keepers of the sacred 20-day calendar used the eclipse hype as a teaching moment. They organized public readings of the Popol Vuh, the Maya creation epic, stressing its emphasis on cyclical renewal. Young activists created radio programs in Quechua and Mam languages to debunk the doomsday myths, refocusing attention on real threats like deforestation and cultural erosion. What makes this tale haunting isn't just the cultural dissonance, but the timing. The eclipse occurred just months before the Millennium Bug Scare, another imagined catastrophe born from misreading systems. Both reveal a shared human frailty, our tendency to project fears onto inscrutable patterns, whether in code or constellations. But where Y2K fears faded at midnight, the Mayas' true legacy endured, not as prophets of doom, but as architects of time who understood that endings are always inevitably beginnings in disguise. By the time the umbral shadow lifted, the lesson was etched in sunlight. The tourists packed up their crystals, the daykeepers returned to their milpas. The real prophecy fulfilled wasn't in the sky, but in the quiet resilience of those who'd always known how to read it. The countdown to December 21st, 2012 felt like the world was holding its breath. Headlines screamed about the Maya apocalypse, blockbuster movies depicted global cataclysms, and survivalists stockpiled bunkers, all because of a misunderstood calendar and a cosmic event that never actually happened. At the heart of the hysteria was the so-called galactic alignment, a term that sounded scientific but bore little resemblance to reality. Proponents claimed the sun would align with the center of the Milky Way on the winter solstice, triggering gravitational chaos or spiritual awakening. The truth, the alignment was neither rare nor consequential. Astronomers quickly pointed out that the sun passes near the Milky Way center every year, not just in 2012, and near is a relative term when discussing cosmic distances. The actual gap between the sun and the galactic center was still 26,000 light-years, making any gravitational effect utterly negligible. NASA's Near-Earth Object Program even issued a public statement titled "Why the World Didn't End," patiently explaining that the Maya never predicted doomsday. Their long count calendar simply turned over a cycle like an odometer rolling from 99.99 to 0. What's fascinating isn't the misinformation itself, but why it spread so wildly. The 2012 frenzy tapped into a deep human craving for narrative, a desire to believe the universe operates on dramatic punctuation rather than indifferent continuity. New Age entrepreneurs capitalized on this, hawking everything from alignment survival kits to guided meditations promising ascension to a higher vibration. Meanwhile, actual Maya scholars faced an uphill battle correcting myths. In Guatemala, indigenous leaders like Carlos Barrios, a respected Ajkij daykeeper, traveled internationally to clarify that their ancestors saw the date as a time for reflection and renewal, not destruction. The irony lies in the astronomical facts overshadowed by fear. December 21, 2012 coincided with a minor solar maximum, a routine peak in the sun's 11-year activity cycle. While sunspots increased, their effects paled next to historic storms like the Carrington event of 1859. Even the much-hyped dark rift in the Milky Way, cited as a portal of doom, was just a lane of interstellar dust clouds visible any clear night with binoculars. Yet none of this deterred the doomsayers. Conspiracy forums buzzed with last-minute theories, hidden planets on collision courses, rogue black holes, even alien interventions. When the day finally arrived, the most dramatic event was a viral livestream of a lone Mayan elder laughing as he ate breakfast at dawn. By noon, social media was flooded with memes mocking the anticlimax. But beneath the humor lurked a sobering lesson. In an age of information overload, ancient symbols are often stripped of context and weaponized as clickbait. The real alignment that day wasn't celestial, it was the collision of indigenous wisdom with modern desperation for meaning, and perhaps that's the prophecy we should have heeded all along. Nightfall on April 15, 2014 turned the moon a deep, unsettling red, the first in a series of 4 total lunar eclipses known as a tetrad. While astronomers marveled at the celestial mechanics, televangelist John Hagee saw something far more ominous. To him, these blood moons weren't just a quirk of orbital alignment, they were divine billboards heralding earth-shaking events tied to biblical prophecy. His book, 4 Blood Moons, Something is About to Change, became a sensation, arguing that lunar tetrads coinciding with Jewish holy days, as these did, had historically signaled turning points for Israel and the world. Followers braced for everything from economic collapse to the rapture, but how much of this stood up to scrutiny? History offers a sobering counterpoint. The same rare pattern, 4 consecutive blood moons aligning with Passover and Sukkot, occurred in 1493, just after the Spanish Inquisition expelled Jews from the Iberian Peninsula. Hagee framed this as divine punishment, yet secular historians note the expulsion was politically motivated, driven by royal marriage alliances and xenophobia, not celestial signs. Another tetrad in 1949 coincided with Israel's founding, which Hagee called miraculous, But the moon's redness that year didn't stop the subsequent war or decades of conflict. Even the 1967 tetrad, linked to Israel's six-day war victory, overlooks the messy geopolitics behind the fighting, the common thread. Humans interpreting random alignments through the lens of pre-existing beliefs. Astronomers added another wrinkle: tetrads aren't as rare as Halley claimed. While they occur irregularly, the 21st century will see 8, compared to none during the 300-year span from 1600 to 1900. The difference: orbital mechanics, not divine scheduling. As for the moon's crimson hue, it's simply sunlight filtered through Earth's atmosphere, the same process that paints sunsets red. No angels required, yet the real lesson lies in the aftermath. When the final blood moon of the tetrad darkened in September 2015, no empires fell. Stock markets didn't crash. Instead, Syrian refugees flooded Europe, and climate protests gained momentum, events no prophet had foreseen. Halley later softened his rhetoric, framing the moons as spiritual wake-up calls rather than deadlines. It's a pattern as old as the stars themselves. When prophecies fail, they don't disappear, they evolve. The blood moons didn't herald the end times, but they did illuminate something just as profound: our endless hunger to find meaning in the sky's indifferent glow. Among all the celestial doomsday prophecies, few have clung to the public imagination like the myth of Planet X, a mysterious world supposedly lurking at the solar system's edge, poised to unleash catastrophe. Its modern incarnation, Nibiru, traces back to the 1970s when author Acharya Sitchin reinterpreted ancient Sumerian texts. He claimed they described a rogue planet with a 3,600-year orbit, home to an advanced alien race called the Anunnaki. Never mind that actual Assyriologists dismissed his translations as fantasy. The idea struck a chord. By the 2000s, YouTube videos and conspiracy forums echoed with claims that Nibiru would soon barrel into Earth, triggering pole shifts, tsunamis, and mass extinction. What's fascinating isn't just the persistence of this myth, but how it adapts. Early predictions placed Nibiru's arrival in 2003, then 2012, tying it to the Maya calendar frenzy. When those dates passed uneventfully, believers simply pushed the deadline forward. Some claimed NASA was hiding the truth, pointing to grainy images of lens flares or camera artifacts as proof of the approaching planet. Others wove in biblical prophecy, alleging Nibiru was the destroyer mentioned in Revelation. The irony: the very technology used to spread these claims, space telescopes and planetary surveys, has repeatedly disproven them. Astronomers explain why Planet X can't hide. Even a modest-sized planet would exert gravitational tugs on neighboring worlds, altering their orbits in ways measurable since the time of Kepler. NASA's a WISE mission, which scanned the infrared sky for distant objects, found no evidence of anything larger than a dwarf planet beyond Neptune. As for Sitchin's 3,600-year orbit, Caltech's Mike Brown, who helped demote Pluto, notes that such a path would be wildly unstable. "Gravity doesn't work like that," he quipped. "You can't just scribble a loopy orbit and call it science." Yet the legend endures, fueled by deeper anxieties. In an era of climate change and pandemics, the idea of an external, singular threat, a cosmic scapegoat, offers strange comfort. It simplifies chaos into narrative. Conspiracy theories flourish when trust in institutions erodes, and Nibiru checks all the boxes: secret knowledge, government cover-ups, and a dramatic climax. Scholars compare it to medieval comet panics or the 1970s Jupiter effect, where humanity's oldest fear, the sky falling, gets rebranded for every generation. Perhaps the most telling twist came in 2016, when astronomers hypothesized a real Planet 9 based on odd clustering in Kuiper belt objects. Its estimated orbit, if it exists, would take 10 to 20,000 years, nothing like Nibiru's doomsday timetable, but for true believers the distinction blurred overnight. Headlines declaring scientists hunt for Planet X were misinterpreted as vindication, proving how easily facts twist into folklore. The truth may lie not in the stars, but in our need to see them as omens, to turn the vast, indifferent cosmos into a mirror reflecting our deepest fears. October 19, 2017 marked the moment humanity first met an interstellar visitor, a bizarre, cigar-shaped object hurtling through our solar system at nearly 200,000 miles per hour. Astronomers in Hawaii named it Oumuamua, a Hawaiian term meaning scout. But as this cosmic stranger defied every expectation, it didn't just challenge scientific understanding, it reignited an ancient human reflex to see celestial anomalies as something more. Within months, Harvard astrophysicists Avi Loeb and S.H. Mule Bealey dropped a bombshell hypothesis. What if Oumuamua wasn't just a rock? What if its peculiar acceleration and trajectory suggested artificial origin, a solar sail or probe sent by an alien civilization? The evidence was undeniably intriguing. Unlike comets, Oumuamua lacked a visible tail of gas and dust, yet it accelerated as if propelled by unseen forces. Its shape, a needle-like structure 10 times longer than it was wide, bore no resemblance to any known asteroid. Most startling was its brightness, fluctuating wildly as it tumbled, as though crafted from reflective metal. Loeb argued these anomalies fit theoretical models of light-powered alien technology, a concept NASA itself had explored with projects like Breakthrough Starshot. Mainstream astronomers, however, bristled at the leap. Alternative explanations emerged. Perhaps Oumuamua was a shard of a shattered Pluto-like world, expelling invisible hydrogen as it warmed. Others proposed it was a cosmic dust bunny, a porous aggregate of interstellar debris. The European Space Agency's Marco Micheli noted its behavior could be explained by outgassing, if the venting occurred in ways telescopes couldn't detect. Yet beneath the scientific debate pulsed an older, deeper current. For millennia, humans interpreted celestial oddities as messengers, whether Babylonian priests tracking ominous comets or Renaissance scholars fearing signs in heaven. Oumuamua's arrival tapped into that primal unease. Conspiracy forums erupted with claims of government cover-ups. Podcast hosts drew parallels to Arthur C. Clarke's Rendezvous with Rama, a novel about an alien ship passing through our solar system. Even SETI scientists, while skeptical, trained radio telescopes on Oumuamua, listening for signals that never came. What makes this moment so revealing isn't just the clash of theories, but the cultural rift it exposed. Loeb's critics accused him of sensationalism, while his supporters hailed him for daring to ask, "What if?" In a sense, both sides were right. Science demands skepticism, but history shows breakthroughs often begin with heresy. The real lesson of Oumuamua may lie not in its origin, but in our reaction. A mirror held up to humanity's eternal dance between wonder and doubt, between seeing the cosmos as a realm of cold equations or a canvas for infinite possibilities. By the time it faded into the void, all we knew for certain was this: the universe had sent us a riddle, and we're still scrambling to read between the lines. December 21, 2020, a date etched into history not just for the pandemic raging across the globe, but for a celestial event that set the internet ablaze with eerie speculation. That evening, Jupiter and Saturn inched closer in the sky than they had in nearly 8 centuries, appearing as a single radiant point of light, a phenomenon astronomers call the Great Conjunction. But in a year already steeped in uncertainty, this cosmic kiss didn't just inspire awe. It became fertile ground for conspiracy theories. Social media erupted with claims that similar conjunctions had preceded history's deadliest plagues, from the Black Death to the Spanish flu. The implication was clear: the planets had somehow orchestrated humanity's suffering. Historians quickly pointed out the flaws in this narrative. While Saturn-Jupiter alignments do recur roughly every 20 years, a cycle medieval astrologers called the Great Mutation, their correlation with pandemics collapses under scrutiny. The Black Death swept Europe in 1347, decades after the last notable conjunction. The Spanish flu emerged in 1918, again with no close planetary alignment. Even the Antonine Plague of 165 CE, often cited as proof, occurred during a Mars-Saturn conjunction, not Jupiter's. The real link wasn't celestial but psychological. In times of crisis, we scour the skies for patterns, stitching randomness into stories that promise meaning. Yet the 2020 conjunction did coincide with something tangible, a surge in apocalyptic anxiety. Research from the University of Cambridge showed online searches for end times and biblical prophecy spiked 600% that December. Psychologists attribute this to a phenomenon called agent detection bias, our hardwired tendency to attribute events to intentional forces, even when none exist. When faced with an invisible virus upending lives, it felt eerily comforting to blame the planets, as if the universe itself had a hand in the chaos. Astronomers added another layer to the irony. The conjunction's timing falling on the winter solstice was pure coincidence, a quirk of Earth's tilt and orbital mechanics. But in Maya cosmology, Jupiter and Saturn represented the celestial twins, deities associated with balance and upheaval. Their alignment during a global health crisis felt like a cruel joke to those seeking omens. Meanwhile, in India, where the conjunction was visible as a Christmas star, astrologers clashed. Some declared it auspicious, while others warned of economic collapse, proving even stargazers couldn't agree on what the heavens foretold. The lesson here isn't just about debunking myths, it's about how fear reshapes our relationship with the cosmos. In Comet times, we might marvel at two gas giants sharing the sky. In 2020, they became celestial scapegoats, a reminder that the stars don't dictate our fate, but our desperation to make sense of suffering can eclipse even the brightest truths. When the James Webb Space Telescope beamed back its first full-color images in July 2022, scientists gasped, but not for the reasons conspiracy theorists claimed. The deepest infrared views of the universe ever captured revealed galaxies sparkling like cosmic confetti, nebulae painted in unearthly hues, and atmospheric signatures from distant exoplanets. Yet within hours of their release, corners of the internet erupted with panic. Fringe forums insisted one particular image, SMACS 0723, a galaxy cluster warping spacetime into gravitational arcs, wasn't science at all. It was, they declared, photographic evidence of the rapture, streaks of light interpreted as ascending souls or heavenly gates. Others pointed to smudges in the Carina Nebula's dust clouds, alleging they were camouflaged fragments of Nibiru, the mythical rogue planet. Never mind that the telescope's lenses couldn't even focus on objects within our solar system. The myth had taken flight. Astronomers found themselves battling misinformation on an unprecedented scale. Dr. Jane Rigby, Webb's operations project scientist, recalled her dismay when a clip of her explaining lens flare's ordinary artifacts caused by starlight hitting the telescope's mirrors was spliced into viral videos claiming she'd admitted to hiding celestial angels. "It's exhausting," she confessed in an interview. "We're decoding the birth of stars and people are seeing Photoshop glitches." The scientific community's frustration stemmed from a cruel irony. The very clarity of Webb's images, which revealed intricate details never before visible, became fodder for distortion. Pixelation in early data releases caused by cosmic rays hitting the sensors was touted as censored UFOs. Even the telescope's gold-coated mirrors, designed to reflect infrared light, fueled rumors of elite sun-worshipping rituals. The psychological hooks behind these claims revealed deeper vulnerabilities. Dr. Jacob Hack-Misra, an astrobiologist who studies science communication, notes that Webb's targets ancient galaxies, nebulous star-forming regions, trigger a primal response. Humans are pattern-seeking creatures, he explains. When faced with unfamiliar cosmic vistas, some brains default to religious or apocalyptic templates. This isn't new. Medieval astronomers interpreted sunspots as divine warnings, and 19th-century spiritualists claimed Martian canals proved extraterrestrial salvation. But the speed at which modern algorithms amplify such narratives has created a perfect storm. A single TikTok video mislabeling lens reflections as the Four Horsemen can reach millions before fact-checkers even log on. Yet there's a twist the conspiracy theorists didn't anticipate: science's self-correcting nature. When MIT researchers used Webb's data to pinpoint water vapor in an exoplanet's atmosphere, or when astrophysicists mapped the universe's filamentary cosmic web, these discoveries didn't just refute myths, they offered counter-narratives grounded in wonder rather than fear. Perhaps the telescope's greatest revelation isn't about distant galaxies, but about us. In an age of unprecedented access to cosmic knowledge, we're still learning how to look, not just with lenses, but with open minds. The stars have never lied. The challenge lies in teaching ourselves to listen. On April 8, 2024, a total solar eclipse will carve a shadow across North America, from Mexico through Texas all the way to Maine. For astronomers, it's a rare celestial spectacle. For prophecy enthusiasts, it's something far more ominous: a cosmic verdict on the upcoming U.S. presidential election. The parallels to the so-called Trump eclipse of 2017 are already fueling fervent speculation. That year, a total eclipse crossed the United States just months after Donald Trump's inauguration, its path of totality stretching from Oregon to South Carolina, a trajectory some interpreted as a divine stamp of approval, linking it to biblical verses about nation rising against nation. Now, with another eclipse looming months before the 2024 election, whispers of celestial intervention have returned louder than ever. History reveals this isn't just modern superstition. Eclipses have been political harbingers for millennia. In ancient China, emperors employed royal astronomers solely to predict them, believing a missed forecast could trigger rebellions. When a solar eclipse darkened Constantinople in 337 CE, it was seen as an omen of Emperor Constantine's death, a prophecy fulfilled just weeks later. Even the downfall of Henry I of England in 1133 was blamed on an eclipse, with chroniclers claiming the darkened sky mirrored the chaos of his contested succession. The pattern repeats across cultures. The Aztecs interpreted eclipses as the sun god's wrath, demanding sacrifices to avert disaster, while Babylonian kings temporarily abdicated during eclipses, installing substitute rulers to absorb any celestial punishment. What makes the 2024 eclipse uniquely ripe for modern mythmaking is its timing and its path. The shadow's trajectory cuts through key swing states like Texas and Pennsylvania, regions already politically charged. Conspiracy forums are buzzing with overlays of the eclipse map onto electoral college projections, as if the cosmos itself is highlighting battlegrounds. Some evangelical commentators have linked the event to Old Testament prophecies, particularly Amos chapter 8's warning of a day when the sun would go down at noon, symbolizing societal collapse. Others note the eclipse occurs just days before the 75th anniversary of NATO, a detail fringe theorists claim hints at the alliance's demise. Yet beneath the hysteria lies a sobering truth: eclipses are meticulously predictable. Their paths can be calculated centuries in advance, devoid of any agenda. The same eclipse frenzy gripped America in 1918, when a total eclipse crossed the country mid-pandemic during World War I. Preachers declared it a sign of God's displeasure, yet the war ended months later, not with divine intervention but through diplomacy and exhaustion. The real pattern here isn't in the sky, it's in our minds. When uncertainty looms, we project our anxieties onto the cosmos, turning orbital mechanics into Rorschach tests for our deepest fears. The 2024 eclipse will come and go. The election will proceed, but the stories we tell about these events, the meanings we stitch into the fabric of shadow and light, reveal something far more enduring than any celestial spectacle: our unshakable urge to believe the universe is watching and that it cares. Ancient stargazers relied on celestial patterns and intuition. Today's astronomers have a new oracle whispering prophecies in lines of code. Artificial intelligence, trained on mountains of cosmic data, now predicts solar storms before they erupt and maps asteroid trajectories years in advance with eerie precision. In 2022, NASA AI model Dagger forecasted a major solar flare 8 hours before it struck, giving satellites just enough time to power down. Meanwhile, the Asteroid Institute's algorithm Thor scans old telescope images, uncovering hundreds of previously overlooked near-Earth objects, like spotting needles in a haystack the size of a galaxy. These systems don't just calculate, they learn, adapting their predictions as they ingest new data, evolving faster than any human mind ever could. Yet with this power comes an unsettling echo of the past. Like Babylonian priests interpreting sheep entrails, we've handed the keys of divination to black box algorithms we barely understand. When the European Space Agency's AI warned of a 1 in 10,000 chance that asteroid 2019 DS1 might collide with Earth in 2082, it sparked panic before human scientists could contextualize the risk. The incident exposed a flaw no ancient oracle ever faced. Machines lack nuance. They don't grasp that flashing, potential impact in red letters might trigger stock market dips or doomsday cults. Medieval astrologers at least understood theater, delivering prophecies with enough ambiguity to allow for human error. Our new silicon seers deal in cold probabilities, oblivious to the chaos their certainty can unleash. The ethical dilemmas multiply when corporations and militaries enter the equation. Private firms like Astro AI sell solar flare forecasts to telecom companies, raising questions. Should cosmic predictions be copyrighted? What happens when a for-profit algorithm underestimates a storm that then fries a nation's power grid? Militaries already monitor space weather to protect satellites. The next logical step is AI predicting how solar eruptions might blind enemy sensors during conflict. We're reinventing celestial omens as tactical tools, just as Rome's augurs once read bird flights to justify wars. Perhaps the most profound parallel lies in how both ancient and modern prophets shape society's rhythm. The Maya timed crop plantings to Venus. Today, airlines reroute flights based on AI geomagnetic forecasts. The difference, our dependency carries higher stakes. When Babylon's astrologers erred, a bad harvest followed. If an AI mispredicts a coronal mass ejection, it could strand astronauts or collapse global navigation systems. We've traded star charts for neural networks, but the fundamental question remains. In our quest to master the sky's chaos, have we created a new kind of cosmic faith, one where we kneel not before gods but before datasets? The answer may lie in blending old wisdom with new. Indigenous sky watchers from Polynesia to the Andes perfected predictive models over millennia without losing sight of uncertainty's role. Their warnings came with room for interpretation, humility baked into the stars. As we stand on the brink of an AI-augmented astronomy, we do well to remember that the universe seldom follows a script, not even one written in Python. The best prophecies, whether carved in cuneiform or coded in silicon, leave space for the sky to surprise us. TikTok's algorithm has resurrected an ancient language, one written not in cuneiform or star charts, but in 30-second clips set to dreamy synth tracks. The platform's #astrology hashtag has amassed over 40 billion views, where Gen Z creators blend emoji-laden horoscopes with mental health advice, relationship hot takes, and yes, even stock market predictions. At first glance, this digital astrology boom seems worlds apart from the rigorous celestial observations of Babylon or the Maya. But scratch beneath the surface and you'll find eerie parallels and a few stark divergences in how humanity seeks meaning in the stars. Ancient astrologers spent lifetimes tracking planetary movements, their predictions tied to harvests, wars, and the fates of kings. Today's astro memes distill cosmic influence into bite-sized truths. A Scorpio moon means you trauma dump on first dates, or Mercury retrograde is why your Wi-Fi's glitching. The tools have changed: smartphones instead of sextants, apps replacing ephemerides, but the core impulse remains identical: a hunger to explain chaos through cosmic patterns. Where Babylonian priests saw omens in Jupiter's retrograde, TikTokers blame miscommunications on the same phenomenon. The difference: speed. A viral Capricorn rant can spread globally before an ancient astrologer could finish polishing their observational lens. Yet this democratization comes with trade-offs. Where traditional systems required years of study, Maya daykeepers memorized entire calendar cycles, algorithmic astrology thrives on accessibility. Apps like CoStar generate hyper-personalized readings using AI, blending birth charts with real-time planetary transits. Critics argue this reduces a complex tradition to cold data points, but proponents counter that it's simply adapting an old practice for a distracted digital age. The irony: some of the most popular astrologers, like at Alexandria 319, weave psychological insights into their readings, echoing the holistic approach of Hellenistic astrologers who saw the stars as mirrors of the soul. The most fascinating shift lies in accountability. Ancient astrologers faced dire consequences for failed prophecies. Assyrian kings weren't known for patience when eclipses foretold victories that never came. Modern astro creators, though, thrive on vagueness. A post declaring Venus in Gemini will bring unexpected flirtations can't be disproven. Someone, somewhere will always fit the description. It's a self-reinforcing system where confirmation bias fuels engagement, and the stakes are laughably low compared to, say, predicting an emperor's downfall. But here's where the old and new collide in unexpected ways. Just as the Babylonians used astrology to navigate political uncertainty, today's youth turn to it amidst societal fractures, climate anxiety, economic instability, the loneliness epidemic. A 2021 study found 70% of Gen Z respondents check horoscopes regularly, not for fortune-telling but as a framework for self-reflection. In this light, astrology's revival isn't about predicting the future, it's about surviving the present. The medium has changed, but the message, written in starlight and screen glow, remains the same. We look up, desperately hoping the sky will tell us who we are. In July 2021, a Pentagon report confirmed what fringe theorists had whispered for decades: unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAP, were real, and even the U.S. government couldn't explain them all. The bombshell disclosure sent shockwaves through the internet, but for a dedicated subset of believers, it wasn't just validation, it was prophecy fulfilled. These modern-day disciples of the UFO disclosure movement didn't see the report as a dry bureaucratic document. They read it like ancient scripture, parsing phrases like advanced technology and unknown origin as cosmic road signs pointing toward an imminent revelation, the return of celestial beings. The parallels to medieval millenarian movements are impossible to ignore. 600 years ago, radical preachers like Joachim of Fior scoured biblical texts for hidden timelines, convinced Christ's return was imminent. Today, disclosure proponents comb through declassified military footage with the same fervor, interpreting pixelated shapes as evidence of galactic federations or interdimensional visitors. Both groups share a core belief that humanity stands on the brink of a transformative event, ushered in by forces beyond our comprehension. The medieval mystic saw angels in the clouds. The modern ufologist sees cloaked spacecraft in infrared videos. The language has changed, but the longing remains identical, a hunger for deliverance from a broken world. Historical precedents make this echo even eerier. In the 1520s, German radical Thomas Müntzer led peasants into battle, convinced divine signs guaranteed their victory against oppressive lords. Fast forward to 2023, when disclosure influencer David Grush testified before Congress about alleged government UFO retrieval programs, sparking calls for a cosmic truth revolution. Both movements framed their struggles as cosmic justice, one against feudal rulers, the other against shadow elites hiding alien technology, the real connective tissue. A shared narrative of hidden knowledge reserved for the faithful that would soon topple the old order. Yet the most striking parallel lies in the psychology of anticipation. Medieval millenarians often pinpointed exact dates for paradise only to recalculate when the apocalypse failed to arrive. The UFO community mirrors this with shifting deadlines. The 70s-era prophecy of Project Blue Beam, a faked alien invasion, gave way to 2017's October surprise, nothing happened, which morphed into today's vague but persistent belief that disclosure is coming soon. Each disappointment strengthens the faith as followers reinterpret setbacks as tests of patience or signs of imminent breakthroughs. What fuels this timeless obsession? At its core, both movements reveal a deep human discomfort with uncertainty. Faced with pandemics, climate crises, or societal fractures, it's easier to believe in an external savior, whether divine or extraterrestrial, than to grapple with messy, human-scale solutions. The medieval peasant prayed for angels to smite corrupt bishops. The modern conspiracist dreams of benevolent aliens exposing corrupt governments. Both fantasies offer the same comforting illusion that the universe itself is orchestrating justice, and all we must do is wait for the sky to speak. Science fiction writer Arthur C. Clarke once noted that any sufficiently advanced technology would seem like magic. Perhaps the inverse is also true. Any sufficiently desperate hope will dress itself in celestial signs, whether pulled from scripture or satellite images. The UFO disclosure movement isn't just about aliens. It's the latest chapter in humanity's oldest story, the dream that one day the heavens will crack open and all our questions will be answered. Until then, we keep scanning the skies, conflating radar glitches with salvation, because the alternative, that we're truly alone in the dark, is the most terrifying prophecy of all. On August 12, 2045, the moon's shadow will race across the United States from California to Florida, stitching together cities, deserts, and coastlines in temporary twilight. But long before the eclipse darkens the sky, another phenomenon will already be underway: the birth of prophecies. Unlike the eclipses of antiquity, this one arrives in an age of hyperconnectivity and algorithmic virality, where every flicker of celestial shadow is passed through layers of digital folklore and AI-generated predictions. The 2045 eclipse won't just cross state lines, it'll collide with humanity's oldest obsession, the need to turn cosmic coincidence into cosmic significance. Climate activists might seize on the eclipse's path, noting how totality cuts through regions most ravaged by rising seas and wildfires. A single viral post overlaying the shadow's trajectory with maps of flooded Miami neighborhoods or scorched California valleys could ignite claims the universe is spotlighting ecological collapse. Meanwhile, quantum computing breakthroughs by then may have birthed AI oracles, algorithms trained on centuries of eclipse prophecies, spitting out eerily personalized horoscopes linking the event to individual destinies. Imagine receiving a notification: your birth chart aligns with the eclipse's peak totality. Expect a radical life shift. The line between astrology and analytics blurs when machine learning identifies patterns no medieval astrologer ever could. And what of politics? If the 2024 eclipse sparked election fears, 2045's could unfold amid even deeper societal fractures. Conspiracy theorists might claim the shadow's timing just weeks before the 80th anniversary of Hiroshima signals impending nuclear reckoning. A candidate's rally in the path of totality could be framed as divine endorsement or hubris, depending on who's interpreting. The eclipse may even intersect with emerging space militarization. Imagine whispers that the moon's shadow is a cloaking device for secret orbital weapons, a narrative fueled by defense contractors' cryptic tweets about solar-powered deterrence. Yet the most profound interpretations may come from an unexpected source: interstellar messaging. By 2045, humanity might be decades into active SETI efforts, broadcasting signals to nearby stars. The eclipse, with its precise predictability, could be reframed as a cosmic homing beacon, a deliberate blink in Earth's eyelid to catch alien attention. Spiritual movements could emerge, teaching adherents to sync their biorhythms with the eclipse, treating it as a gateway for collective consciousness or contact. Underlying it all is the paradox of our relationship with the sky. Eclipses are the most calculable of celestial events, yet we insist on filling their silence with stories. The 2045 eclipse will mirror every one before it, a reminder that no matter how advanced our science, we still look up and see not just the cosmos, but ourselves reflected in its darkness. The moon's shadow is neutral, the meaning we drape over it, that's where the true prophecy lies. From the Babylonians tracking Venus to TikTokers decoding retrograde Mercury, one thread connects every era. The sky has always been our canvas for projection, a mirror for our deepest fears and wildest hopes. Celestial prophecies reveal less about the cosmos than they do about us. Our hunger for control in a chaotic universe, our longing to believe that the stars align just for us. When a comet streaked across the night sky in 1066, it wasn't destiny that crowned William the Conqueror. It was human cunning, weaponizing wonder to shape history. The same pattern repeats today, whether it's algorithms predicting solar storms or influencers spinning eclipse paths into political omens. The universe doesn't speak in prophecies, we do, stitching meaning into the silent machinery of orbiting rocks and burning gas. Yet there's magic in this delusion. However misguided, our ancestors' obsession with celestial signs birthed astronomy, timekeeping, even the scientific method itself. The Maya's Venus tables weren't just superstitious charts, they were mathematical masterpieces. Nostradamus' stargazing, however flawed, reflected a world waking up to the idea that nature followed rules worth decoding. Even the wildest conspiracy theories, from Nibiru to UFO disclosure, spring from a place of awe, a refusal to accept that the cosmos is indifferent. That tension between wonder and skepticism is where discovery thrives. So keep looking up, marvel at eclipses, chase meteor showers, let the vastness of space humble you, but wear your skepticism like a shield. The next time someone claims a planetary alignment spells doom, remember, the real mystery isn't in the stars, but in why we're so desperate for them to tell our stories. Now it's your turn. Which cosmic tale stuck with you? The Babylonians' Venus omens, the Mayas' doomed 2012 prophecy, or something stranger? Drop it in the comments, and let's keep decoding the sky together, one myth at a time. On a quiet August night in 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up something impossible. A burst of sound so powerful, so unlike anything natural, that the astronomer who discovered it scrawled, "Wow," in red ink across the printout. For 72 electrifying seconds, the Big Ear telescope locked onto a signal from the constellation Sagittarius, pulsing at exactly the frequency hydrogen resonates in space, a deliberate choice if you wanted to be heard across the cosmos. Then, just as suddenly as it began, the transmission vanished, leaving behind one of the most tantalizing mysteries in astronomy. Was this our first cosmic hello from another civilization? Or was it something else entirely? The signal's sheer intensity rules out most earthly explanations. No passing satellite or military experiment matched its profile. Some scientists proposed it could have been a comet's hydrogen cloud reflecting solar radiation, but follow-up scans found nothing in that patch of sky. Others suggested a rogue astronomical phenomenon, like a pulsar glitching in a way we've never observed before. But the most spine-tingling theory remains the simplest: what if the wow signal was exactly what it seemed, a beacon from intelligent life? momentarily flickering into our awareness before disappearing into the void. Decades later, we're still listening. Projects like SETI have scanned the same coordinates thousands of times, hoping for a repeat performance. The silence is deafening, yet the wow signal endures as a modern prophecy, not because it predicted anything, but because it forced us to confront a humbling possibility. In a universe teeming with billions of stars, someone or something might have been calling. Whether it was a comet's whisper or a civilization's shout, that 72-second burst redefined our place in the cosmos. And who knows, maybe one day when we least expect it, the skies will speak again. Want to dive deeper into the hunt for alien signals? We've got a whole video brewing on the most chilling SETI discoveries, from the Lorimer burst to the infamous alien megastructure star. Hit subscribe so you don't miss it. After all, the next cosmic hello could come anytime, and this time we'll be ready.